Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name's Mark McNulty, president of Action Coach Bluegrass in Southern Indiana. And today I have Stacy Roof, who is the president and CEO of the Kentucky Restaurant Association, as my guest. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
So today, Stacy's going to be sharing with us what's going on in the hospitality restaurant industry and the journey of an owner in that industry and what some of the challenges are and what some best practices they're doing as business owners to develop their businesses better. And if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe so that you get notifications for future ones. So Stacy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. So tell us a little bit about how you came to the Kentucky Restaurant Association.
Well, I came in, as my kids would say, the 1900s, 1995, which seems like a million years ago. Certainly a lot has changed technology-wise since then. And I responded to a blind ad in the Courier Journal newspaper, which nobody does anymore. And the ad was for KRA administrative assistant. I had no idea what KRA was. I was 5 years out of college in my first post-college job working for a really small business. And I had, just felt like I needed to do the next thing. And so looking for the next thing, I interviewed for that position. I actually used the yellow pages to look up KRA. Couldn't figure it out. So finally arrived with the address information at the fact that it was the Restaurant Association. Knew nothing about trade associations. It's nothing that you study, maybe now you do in college or anything. It's just like a whole different universe. And so I became the administrative assistant, did that for a year or so. The executive director left. They hired someone new, but not for like 6 months. So, you just do more things. It's like owning your own business in that there were 3 staff members and, there's stuff that has to be done. You have a board of directors you have to liaison with. You have events that you're producing. We had training programs. So I just took on more and more over the years. And in 2000 was selected as the CEO.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of accidental entrepreneurs out there, and there's really accidental leaders all over the small business world, right?
Exactly. Exactly. A reluctant, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I guess I know it was as much as anybody else would have in that position.
Right. So tell us about the Kentucky Restaurant Association and what's your mission? How do you support? Tell us about it.
Sure. So we have members all over the state of Kentucky. We happen to have our offices located in Louisville. When we were incorporated in 1964, our original office was in the Starks building downtown. When I came in 95, we were in Executive Park, and now we're in Middletown, which is nice because it's close to Frankfort. We do a lot of advocacy work in Frankfort, representing the restaurants in the state. We have about 1,200 members that represent several thousand locations throughout the state. There are, I guess, almost 9,000 eating and drinking places in Kentucky. So we never have as many as we want, and we never have all the ones we want at the same time because they come and go like many associations. But it's a true trade organization. We have a couple of chapters that are very active, one in Northern Kentucky, one in Louisville. We're looking for leaders in Lexington in that area and also the South Central area near Bowling Green. And post-COVID, it's been hard to get people, they're dealing with their own things that they're trying to salvage their business or keep it going, learning new things, and all that's changed since the 2020 year when everything was thriving before we got shut down and all of that. So the association really, our mission is to do anything we can to help our members be successful. Our mission statement is that we exist for our members' success. And so to some members, that's financial. That's how can you help me make more money or help save money, on insurance discounts or what have you. To some, it's, what are you doing that we can get together under the same roof and talk to each other and network and support each other and figure out how everybody's dealing with the things that we're dealing with. To others, it's just, you know what, this is a third generation business. My family's always been a member of the association. We recognize the value. And for a lot of people, it is that advocacy piece that keeps them as members, because they know that we're really the only ones paying attention to every single bill or administrative regulation in the state that could really affect their business. And they don't have time to read all of that, or to go to the Capitol, or to meet with their legislator, even if they wind up in their dining room, you know? And so we try and be that for them and connect them together. We also have supplier members and educational members throughout the state that have an interest in those restaurants.
Okay. So how have you had to pivot since COVID? I imagine the support requested and needed is quite different today than it was 5 years ago.
It is and it isn't,
Okay.
honestly. I'd say during COVID, it was very, very different, because there were so many messages and so much coverage, right? 24/7, that really just to know the actual truth and not what's a rumor or what your supplier might have told you. It's like, what's the announcement going to be today? And we didn't always have the privilege of knowing before announcements or changes were made, or being at that table to help with those decisions. But I think restaurants during COVID, the good thing that came out of that for us, the silver lining, was that the association was the trusted resource. If I said something, or if we put something out, they knew it to be true, because we got it straight from Frankfurt, or, you know, we went to bat with their local health department on their behalf to find out what they were being told, whether it was right or wrong, you know, whatever the translation may have been. We were an extension, I guess, of their business when they were just trying to, as you said, pivot and keep people employed, sell food, change their business model however they needed to, just to remain in business and come out on the other side. And so since then, things aren't all that different. Labor has always been an issue for our industry. Hiring enough people, hiring the right people. Now they're dealing with people coming back to work, but they're paying a significantly higher price for that. And not all that's bad, right? Because that probably needed to happen and adjust to some degree. But they're also paying a lot, like we see at the grocery, for a lot of materials that they're using. And so their struggles are, how much can we really charge for that dish? Because we've got to make money, but people have a point where they're not going to pay more than X amount for a burger, or for, you know, a plate of a meat and two sides. And so those are kind of the challenges now. I think just dealing with all of those increased fees, taxes, labor charges, and just materials and supplies being higher than ever.
So what are some of the activities you do to support your members? I know you do training, education. So what are some of the support activities that you do for restaurants?
One of the things that we do is, and this happens usually weekly, if not bi-weekly, we have a training and education director, Amy, who's fantastic, and she administers the Serve Safe program, which is a food safety program designed for managers and those that are in the kitchen to be certified, and health departments around the state accept that as the training that they're required to have in place and certification. We also do a Serve Safe alcohol program for licensees who want to train their staff in responsibility. And, you know, and sometimes there are insurance discounts and
Right.
things that go along with that. But the biggest benefit is just having your staff on the same page and communicating with each other, and knowing what signs to look for and what they need to have in place in their policies to make sure that they're protecting that liquor license, because that's often the most valuable resource a restaurant with a liquor license has. And they want to make sure that they abide by the law and all of the things that go along with that. And so those are the two main programs we train on. We'll host webinars fairly regularly, whether they're from a provider member of ours. We did one last week with the Department of Homeland Security about human trafficking. And, you know, as we come into the Derby season, right?
Yep.
It's around all the time, but it's heightened, I think, and we need to really just let our operators know what signs to look for in their businesses if someone happens to be in that situation. and how to help and what the right steps are to take if you think that someone may be in a weird situation like that. And so that's just an example of the kind of things we try and do. We do a lot of emailing because it's tricky, especially with the various hours that operators are open and the meals that they serve. It's hard to communicate with them oftentimes. It's hard to get them to participate in things in particular that are outside their business. And so I'll email information a lot because I know that whether it's midnight when they look at that or 9 o'clock the next morning, hopefully they're not just hitting delete and they'll look through it. And if it pertains to them, then they'll respond when they can.
Right. So in the Louisville area, seems like there's restaurants opening and closing all the time, which isn't unusual, right?
Right.
That's not new. Again, that's not, still a lot of people talking about that's from the COVID hangover. That's long gone.
Absolutely.
It's natural. That's part of the nature of the industry. So in particular, thinking about the startups, the new. So what kind of resources for like a new restaurant
Right.
that or one that's trying to like go to their second location, right? It's one thing to make location one successful,
Mm-hmm.
and replicating that in location number two tends to be more than double the work sometimes.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of location number two questions because they've been through the process
Mhm.
oftentimes. I think that it's overwhelming when you start any kind of business. In our industry, you add a layer of, okay, there's a health department, there may be ABC involved. You've got to get your building plans and your floor plans approved by the fire marshal and all these entities, right? And so it's not just as easy as, okay, go to the Secretary of State's website, register your business, get your tax number with the revenue cabinet, and you're ready to go. You've got all of these layers of things. So I recommend when they come to me and they're brand new and they've never done this before, go to the Kentucky One Stop, register your business, go through those steps, reach out to your local health department, establish a relationship, ask them from their perspective because it differs. Every health department's a little bit different. They've got the basics that they have to do, but get them involved. If you've got a building you're thinking about, ask the health department to come and look at it and tell you before you go down the design or rearranging phase. Get their feedback and let them tell you what they need because you don't want to go through that and end up paying on the back end for things that you didn't do correctly when you set it up. Work with a very good accounting professional who knows restaurants, and we've got those in our association because even, smaller cities' taxes are different than one another. And so just knowing that, you've got to know laws around tipping. You've got to know laws around sharing those tips if that's something that your business does. And then, of course, you've got to know who you're going to buy your food and your beverages from, right? And so, there's a million different things. There's grease traps, there's hood cleaning, there's fire safety, so many different factors, right? And if you've never been in business for yourself before, it can be really daunting to say the least, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, PS, how are people going to know about us, right? How are we
Right.
going to get ourselves out there? There's so much competition. And so hopefully joining the association is a part of that. It's not the part, but it's one of the factors that they can hopefully bring into the fold and we can help them with that.
Okay. So what are some of the things the association does for its members that you wish more restaurant owners knew and
Mm.
realized and took advantage of?
I think that one of the things is just grassroots, old school, and this happened on Sunday. I got an email from one of our operators who said, we're thinking about a new location. They've been in business for many years. She's like, we know all the things we have to do, but I wonder if you could ask other members who they recommend for a design or architect piece because that changes, right? If it's been 10 years since you opened a new spot or you're doing something different than your other places, then you might want a completely different approach, right? Or someone that looks at it differently. And so I put that question out Sunday afternoon, and I bet I got 15 or 20 responses in 3 or 4 hours. And I just simply forwarded those to her. No one knew who this operator was because it's their story to tell. When they're ready to say we're opening a new place, they'll network with their people and they'll put it out there. But that kind of grassroots help.
Mhm.
You always hear how competitive our industry is, and it is, but they're also very giving. And they know that if a new restaurant opens on my street, it's going to bring more business to me too, right? And we're all in this together. And so they're very giving and sharing together, and they do like to help one another. And that's my favorite part when we have meetings and things, is to see them during a break time just kind of going, what are you doing about this? How are you dealing with that? Can you believe that happened? What's going on in your place? So all those collaborative things. And then there's who should I use for payroll or merchant processing, and all of those types of questions as well. But I think for the most part, they just want trusted resources, and to
Mhm.
know who to get what from and what other operators are doing.
Okay. You mentioned, obviously restaurant owners are members, but you've got like associate members
Yes.
in.
Yes. Associate members are suppliers or service providers. They're payroll companies. They're fire and security companies. They're ServPro, who comes in and cleans up if there's a mess of some sort. They're insurance companies. They're food brokers. They're food distributors. They're Republic National Distributing that sells, wine and spirits. There's just a million different things that restaurants need to have at their disposal to be able to operate and open every day. There's companies that bring in their floor mats, their linens, service the hood cleaning in their establishments, or the grease traps. There's companies that come in and replace the soap all over the restaurant and the restrooms, and just all those things. And then the things that we see every day, the dishes and the straws and the condiments and all the things that we eat and stuff. So there's that. There's also educational members. We have a separately incorporated 501(c)(3) educational foundation, which oversees our ProStart program, which is a curriculum for high school students that are interested in hospitality and culinary and management. And so, we're trying to develop those next folks that will hopefully go to work in our industry and love it. And we connect them with mentors and with those suppliers and with those post-secondary education institutions all over the place. We just did a competition for our ProStart teams on Saturday, and we're sending the 2 winning teams in culinary and management to the national competition in Baltimore next month. And so we'll be working with those students over the next 6-7 weeks to try and hone their skills and make their presentations and their cooking and their menus, everything better, so that when they get there in that national spotlight and they're on that giant floor competing, they represent us well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. So somebody is interested in becoming a member of the association. What's the process?
So it's really easy. And the easiest way, I guess, is right on our website, kyra.org. The first button that'll pop up is join now. Dues are mostly tax deductible. That small portion that we use for our efforts in Frankfurt makes it not 100% tax deductible. But,
Yeah.
For a few $100s annually, they can be a member of ours. And if you look at it as a tax deduction, it's practically free, right? And the resources that we provide. But I would say that it's, any association or any group of people has a professional association. This is that for restaurants. Just like if you were a CPA, you would join your association. You probably have a speakers or coaching association that you're a member of, that you participate in. Those are the people that you glean knowledge from and that you want to share information with and ask those tough questions when they pop up. And so to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. But with all the technology that exists today, I think a lot of people rely on Google and other internet information as that de facto association, because we don't have the personal touch as much as we used to, right,
Right.
in the world. And I'm older, I'm old school, and so I first think of things like associations and groups, but younger folks may not. They're used to just finding an answer in 10 seconds on their phone and kind of going with that, looking at reviews, seeing who said what, and going down that road. but the association always works in the background and it's always a good value. Restaurant members pick their dues level. We don't audit that. We don't care. But for a few $100 for a year, we try and keep it fair so that smaller folks, the scale is smaller. If they are larger or have more locations, then they're suggested, it ties to their food and beverage sales annually. So, it's the honor system. Don't care. I would just encourage any restaurant to be part of the association because we're doing the work on their behalf, whether they are or not. We just want them to do their part.
Right. What's your number one piece of advice to like a starting restaurant?
Ooh,
First time.
it kind of depends because a lot of times they have some background and that's helpful if they've worked for someone else or if they've been in the industry or around it. That's always good and that bodes well, right?
Right.
If they're 100% new, no background whatsoever, everybody loves my meatloaf, then my advice is you really need to consider this because it's not easy. It's not easy work. Even if all of the things are humming along perfectly, it's really hard, right? There's a less than 5% profit margin. So for every dollar you make, for every cup of coffee you sell, you're going to make a few pennies. And so you've got to look at it from so many different angles. You've got to tackle volume, you've got to tackle location, and all of these things have to be functioning at a really high level for you to be profitable and to continue down this road. And sometimes that takes, a couple, 3 years, right? And so a lot of our operators are still digging out of COVID debt,
Right.
believe it or not. And so,
No,
while
that's common. You're not the only industry.
no,
The good news is the money was there so that everybody didn't have to go back
exactly,
and close their doors.
exactly.
The bad news is they all owe the Small Business Administration millions of dollars.
Exactly. So it's not an easy industry. And I advise them to talk with an accountant and an attorney before they really get serious about all of that. Now, for those that have kind of had a head start, maybe they've been employed, they've worked in the industry for a long time, and they just know a little more about it. It might not be as daunting, right? But typically they'll come to us when they're brand new and they don't know a thing, and I'll try and get them in front of a member or two so that they can answer real questions, not just the Stacy version. Here's the little package of information. Operators can give them the real, the real down low.
Okay. So now a couple quick questions to kind of wrap us up here. This has been fantastic. Really glad we did this. What's your key to success personally? What's been your personal key to success? You've been running this association for a long time.
I think that probably just maintaining and developing relationships. Personally, I have a lot of faith. I think you have to have something that kind of keeps you grounded, but we're a small association. I don't have a big staff. There's 3 other people, including our educational foundation guy, Rich. And so I think that being available to people and, like I said, developing and nurturing those relationships over time, having a good board of directors that I can turn to and say, this is what's going on. How do you guys think we should approach this? They were really key during COVID. I hate to keep going back to that, but it still feels like it just happened, in a lot of ways. And so I think that people are always going to be at the heart of our industry, and they're certainly at the heart of the association, and just keeping people engaged and involved where they can be and relying on them. I'm not the expert, they are. And together we make up hopefully what people perceive to be a really good association.
Okay, awesome. So what's a book you've read or listened to, if you're an audiobook person, recently that you would recommend to others? It's right there, huh? Made from scratch. Well, the book
This
by
is the story written by Kent Taylor, the founder of Texas Roadhouse, who we unfortunately lost a couple of years ago. But it's a really good book. I mean, I tell you, that guy tried and tried and tried. He was very unsuccessful before he was successful, and he kept trying, and so not every story turns out that way, but look at what he created. And, whether it's a much smaller version of that, with a mom and pop, or it's on that scale. There are a lot of operators who have, I'm sure, very similar stories there. But it's a really good book, and it's full of funny stories and numbers and things that he quotes, and it's just really cool. I like that story. That's been a great company, and I'm glad they're headquartered here in Kentucky.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. So last question for you today for to wrap up. What inspires you the most today?
Whew. I guess what inspires me is the fact that our operators are constantly challenged. There's always new stuff they're faced with, and they always figure out a way to change their business model if they need to, or to stick with what they know works and ride it out. Over the past few years, they've had to completely change what they do just to survive, right? Now, I got a couple of notes from people that were like 3 or 4 years ago, you know, I think this is it. We're done. We've been in the business a long time. We're selling or we're retiring and we're moving to, fill in the blank country. And so that certainly happened a little bit, but for the most part, if you didn't have a drive-through, some operators built a drive-through. If you didn't have outdoor seating, some people built outdoor seating. And so to me, what's inspiring is just that spirit of always figuring out the next thing. How are we going to make it work? Because things change constantly and it's so competitive that if you're not evolving and changing, then you're not going to be here in a few years. And for some people that are kind of phasing out or getting to the end of their career life, maybe that works and the timing works. But for most of them, they want to keep that business going if it's successful. And that requires just constantly changing and adapting to whatever changes they don't have a choice on.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. No, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. So this has been Stacy Roof, President, CEO of the Kentucky Restaurant Association. I highly recommend that you bookmark this and save this. We talked a lot about the restaurant industry, hospitality, but a lot of these lessons and thoughts and approaches to business apply regardless of the industry you're in. Business is business, and each industry has some specifics to that industry, but there's a lot that just applies no matter what industry or business you're in. But if you are in the restaurant industry and you're not a member of the association, I highly encourage you to contact Stacy and learn about how the association can help you, because it is a tough industry to be in. And the good news is you don't have to do it alone.
That's right.
There is a whole team of people willing to help you, and Stacy has access to all the other resources that she can plug you into and help you with as well. So make sure you do that. So bookmark this and make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any future conversations. Stacy, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we will see everybody again on our next conversation. So have a good day and take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.